Welcome back to our study in the book of Genesis. We're looking at chapter 20. We're looking at Abraham and Abimelech. Abraham lies to Abimelech. Abraham left the oaks of Mamre and travelled to the Negeb. There he dwelt in Gerar. Abraham said Sarah was his sister in 20 verse 2. Abimelech, the king of Gerar, took Sarah into his own harem. Verse 21 says, Abraham left there for the region of Negeb and settled between Kadesh and Shur. While staying in Gerar, Abraham said to his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." And Abimelech, the king of Gerar, had Sarah brought to him. But God visited Abimelech in a dream one night. "You are to die," he told him, "because of the woman you have taken, for she is a married woman." Abimelech, however, had not gone near her. So he said, "Lord, would you kill someone even if he's upright? Did he not tell me himself, 'She is my sister'? She herself said, 'He is my brother.' I did this for a clear conscience and clear hands." "Yes, I know," God replied in a dream, "that you did this for a clear conscience, and I myself prevented you from sinning against me. That was why I didn't let you touch her. Now send the man's wife back, for he is a prophet and can intercede on your behalf for your life. But understand, if you do not send her back, this means death for you and all yours." The Negeb is the southern region of Israel that is sandwiched between the hill country of Judah to the north and the desert of Zin, Shur and Paran to the south, and the Dead Sea region to the east. This open and rugged region has bushes but no forests, mild winters followed by periodic rains, and hot, dry summers. Abraham and Isaac and Jacob would live a semi-nomadic existence, probably grazed their livestock in the desert like Negeb during the winter, migrated north to the hill country around Bethel, Hebron and Shechem in the summer. In Jesus' time, the Negeb was known as the Idumea, or Edom. It was the homeland of Esau's descendants and the birthplace of Herod the Great, who was an Idumean, not a Jew. Abraham travels to Gerar. God appeared to Abimelech in a dream. He told him he had the other man's wife. Abimelech pleads he's innocent because he thought Sarah was unmarried, and Abraham told Abimelech he had kept him from touching Sarah. Abraham had grown in his faith and his trust in the Lord, but he still had moments when his trust in the Lord failed. What previous mistake did he repeat while living in Gerar? What was the result of his failure? This is the second time he claimed Sarah was his sister, and instead of acknowledging her as his wife, Sarah was taken to the harem of King Abimelech of Gerar. Abimelech was the king of Gerar, a city which was located in the Negeb between Kadesh Barnea and desert of Shur. The Hebrew word Abimelech, which means "my father is king," may be a throne name passed down to the sons who succeeded their fathers in a dynastic line of kings who ruled in Gerar. Isaac will have a similar encounter many years later with another man who is called King Abimelech of Gerar. There are similarities. Pharaoh and Abimelech encounter the Pharaoh king, tells a half-truth about Sarah, king takes Sarah as wife, God brings plague upon the king is angered with Abraham, king rewards Abraham. The difference is the location of the king. The communication with God is different. The nature of the plague, the timing of the reward, the purpose of the reward, and the prayer of Abraham. Like the earlier incident with the Egyptian Pharaoh, Sarah was selected for harem duty, a great honour for most women of this area. A woman chosen for a king's harem could look forward to a life of security and luxury, and she might even be lucky enough to bear the heir. Even at 89, Sarah was evidently still a beautiful woman. How did God intervene to save Sarah and to preserve the legitimacy of the son who was destined to carry the line of the promised seed and through whom the Abrahamic covenant was destined to continue? God revealed the truth of Abraham's relationship with Sarah to Abimelech in a dream, and warned Abimelech if he failed to return Sarah, it would mean death for him and for all his household. What information did God offer Abimelech as an incentive for right action? What else did God do to encourage right action from Abimelech? God told him Abraham was a prophet who could intervene on his behalf. God caused all the king's wives to become infertile. Strange may seem, Abimelech stood head and shoulders above Abraham in this passage. We must admit there's no sin into which the Christian cannot fall in times of disobedience and unbelief. Often those who are not Christians live better lives than those who are Christians, which is tragic, really. At such times, unbelievers may put Christians to shame by their integrity and morality. While the faithlessness of Abraham comes as no surprise, the faithfulness of God to Abraham at this time of failure is still amazing. Had I been God, the last thing I would have done would be to reveal my relationship to Abraham. Even if my own character demanded that I remain faithful to my promises, I wouldn't have disclosed to Abimelech that Abraham was a believer, albeit a carnal one. Yet God disclosed the fact that Abraham was the object of his special care. More than this, Abraham was identified as a prophet of God. He was God's representative and the intermediary through whom Abimelech must be healed. This must have left Abimelech shaking his head. How could Abraham be a man of God at the same time as he was a liar? Abimelech, however, was not given any opportunity to take punitive action in spite of the problems Abraham's disobedience had brought upon the king's household. Abraham was the source of Abimelech's suffering, it was true, but he was also the solution. Abimelech and Abraham both found themselves in a very awkward position. Abimelech confronted Abraham and restored Sarah to him. Abraham prayed to God in behalf of Abimelech and his household. God had closed the wombs of Abimelech's household because of Sarah. Abimelech's response to God's warning. Was Abimelech an honourable man? Is there any proof that he was honourable? He answered God honestly, protesting his innocence. God was protecting Sarah, but he told the king he was also protecting him from sinning by revealing the truth, because Abimelech's conscience was clean. And summoning Abraham, Abimelech said to him, "What have you done to us? What wrong have I done to you for you to bring such guilt on me and my kingdom? You had no right to treat me like this." Abimelech then said to Abraham, "What possessed you to do such a thing?" "Because," Abraham replied, "I thought there would be no fear of God here, that I should be killed for the sake of my wife. Anyway, she is really my sister, my father's daughter, though not my mother's, besides being my wife. So when God made me wander far from my father's home, I said to her, 'As an act of love you can do me everywhere we go. Say that of me that I am your brother.'" Abimelech took sheep, cattle, men, women, slaves, and presented them to Abraham, and gave him back his wife, Sarah. Abimelech said, "Look, my land is open to you. Settle wherever you please." To Sarah he said, "Look, I'm giving your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. This will allay any suspicions about you. As far as all the people around you are concerned, you have been completely vindicated." Abraham then interceded with God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his slave girls, so that they could have children. For Yahweh had made all the women of Abimelech's household barren on account of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Abimelech's sense of outrage led him to lecture Abraham on his deceptiveness and to demand an explanation for his behaviour. What was Abraham's explanation? He was afraid, and that Sarah was really his half-sister. It's also interesting he admitted he convinced Sarah to comply with his scheme by telling her that her lie was an act of love. Note 2 important points here. First, moral laws existed that all were familiar with. Adultery equals sin. The moral law is certainly God's law. When man violates God's law, he sins. Secondly, note that God is the God of all peoples, not only the God of Abraham. This is the second of 3 parallel episodes in Genesis that concern the pearl of a bride of the patriarchs Abraham and Isaac. In each case, she is a woman who will bear a child who will continue the line of the promised seed, and whose descendants will establish the salvation kingdom of Israel, precursor to the salvation kingdom of the church. Episode 1, Sarah's adoption by Pharaoh in Genesis chapter 12. Episode 2, Sarah's adoption by King Abimelech of Gerar in Genesis 20. And Episode 3, Rebekah's thwarted adoption by King Abimelech. Each story has the same 5 elements: a migration, an abduction or threatened abduction, God's intervention, a deliverance, and a conclusion. These 3 events point forward to a significant event in salvation history, the preservation of the promised seed. When the children of Israel were in bondage in Egypt, and God intervened to rescue his bride, who would one day bring forth the promised seed, the Redeemer, the Messiah. There's a link in the narrative between God's intervention with Lot and God's intervention with Abimelech. If we compare and contrast King Abimelech's response to God's intervention with Lot's response to the angels, how did the relationship or lack of relationship with Abraham impact their lives? Both men received a divine warning concerning the consequences of sin. Lot was rescued out of danger, but by his immediate obedience to God's warning, the angels had force play to take him out of the city. Then when Lot was told he must be saved, he hesitated to accept the angel's direction and proposed a plan of his own. In contrast, Abimelech not only listened to God, but immediately heeded the warning, and even went beyond what God told him to do in seeking divine approval. Lot is an example of one who resists complete submission of God's will for one's life. Such willful disobedience to turn away from sin can destroy a life. Abimelech will be blessed through his continued contact with Abraham. Lot, in refusing to return to his kinsman Abraham, lost the blessings that would have been available to him. Do we have a covenant kinsman through whom his blessings flow out to those of us? Jesus Christ is our kinsman redeemer. God pours blessings and grace out upon those who are bound by that relationship. If you got anything out of this chapter, please feel free to come back